I believe that's where it was. So I'm out of the Quad Cities. I drove to Des Moines. I saw you speak, and frankly, your set blew me away. It was only 20 minutes, but we've got an hour here. You can take as little or as long as you want. And it really was awesome. And I loved everything that you talked about, from financial freedom to investing in real estate, everything from like flipping, getting into the house flipping business, everything that you had to say. So I really wanted you to speak to my audience about that and about the Mark Lane education, what you have to offer, and the floor is yours.
Yeah, cool. Okay. Do you want to do this more like interview, or do you want me just to
Just
kind of go?
do you,
Okay,
Mark.
cool. All right, sounds good. All right, so yeah, so the speech I gave at the Winter Circle was on wealth building, and I gave that because there's everybody that hears about flipping houses, and they hear about real estate, and they hear about that being a way to make money. But what I've experienced is that very, very, very few people understand how to build wealth. And I was the same way. In fact, part of my story was that I had gotten into flipping houses. I started in 2010. So I left a job as a factory worker at John Deere and jumped into real estate in 2010. And, over the course of a few years, I had multiplied my income. I left a job making $40,000 a year, working minimum 60-hour weeks. And next thing you know, I was making several $100,000 a year. And that carried on for a few years. And I finally got to a point where, I had essentially made probably a good million or two, but I had nothing to show for it. Literally nothing. I mean, there'd still be times where I'd go get groceries and my card would be declined. Take my family out to eat and my card would be declined. And I'm like, here, everybody thinks that, I'm killing it in business, but I have nothing to show for it. Why? Like, how am I making all this money, but there's nothing to show? And so that really like hit home with me of, I got to figure out how the wealth game works. I've learned how to make money. How do I keep it, and how do I make it grow? And so I essentially just put myself on that path to learn the fundamentals of building wealth, because building wealth and making money are not the same at all. In fact, they're almost completely opposites. So I started putting myself down that path and learning from everybody that's out there. I feel like I've read probably every book on all the different retirement accounts and all the different options out there. I've learned from people like Jim Rohn and Tony Robbins and Robert Kiyosaki. I've gone through all the courses and programs and mentorships. And once I went through it all, I realized that they all have gaps in them. For example, Dave Ramsey, a lot of people follow Dave Ramsey. Dave Ramsey's really great for the poor and middle class, right? He teaches how to get out of debt, all that stuff, which is necessary, but he doesn't teach anything about skill sets. He doesn't teach anything about how to increase your income and how to invest wisely. Putting your money in a mutual fund is not good investing. Like, he has that for the masses and something that they can latch onto and be consistent with, but that's not good investing. And then there's people like Robert Kiyosaki that teaches debt's a good thing, and it is when used in real estate, but he doesn't teach anything about getting out of debt and some of those other fundamentals. And so I realized that I had to build my own. I had to build a system that, one, could help me get out of debt, that could help me increase my income, that could teach me how that I could continue to invest with, and then I could continue to reinvest those investment earnings for exponential growth long into the future. So I want to give you a little bit of story of why I did this. Like, it's not only like getting to a place where I had made money and then didn't have any, but it was really searching for an answer for my daughter. Okay, when I was at the factory, this was I was working 10, 12-hour days, came home, I think it was second shift, and came home late at night. My wife at the time, she was in bed. My daughter was in bed with her. My daughter was probably a max of about 2 years old at the time. And she was sleeping. I go up the stairs, set my lunchbox on the counter. I go up the stairs, and I just sat down next to her, and something that just didn't feel right. So I'm sitting there kind of like running my hands through her head, through her hair. And, next thing you know, I start just crying. And I suddenly had a vision of her growing up to be exactly like I was at that moment, which was completely broken. I had no direction, wasn't fulfilled. I had a dead-end career, broke, wasn't providing well for my family, all the things that makes a man feel worthless, for lack of better words. And so I made a vow in that moment that I was going to change our family's life. And I didn't know how, but I knew that it was going to happen. And, part of the reason I did that, in that moment, I had a moment of clarity where I thought, I could just let things continue and, her essentially get raised by the world, and the world is going to teach her what it wants to about money and investing or lack of. It's going to teach her how to think about, money and finances and a career and how to be successful and all that stuff, which, as we probably have, most of us have probably experienced, it doesn't teach us anything positive. Most of what it teaches us is the wrong path. It teaches us all about possessions. It teaches us all about saving instead of investing. It teaches us to be ultra conservative instead of building our skill sets. I didn't know any of that stuff at that time, but I knew that I had to be the one to set the path for her, because I knew that if I didn't step up, that someday she was going to look around and see wealthy, successful people, and she was going to make excuses. Her being raised in the middle-class home, I knew that she would make excuses because I made them. And she would say, you know what? That person's successful because they grew up in a rich family. That person's successful because they had a good education. That person's successful because of who their friends are. She would make excuses, but I knew that as her dad leading the way, coming from nothing, that she would not have an excuse if I was the game changer for our family. She would understand that if dad did it, I can do it. Dad took the lead, I can take the lead. So that was the decision I made, and never looked back. So that was in, I guess, again, I got started in real estate 2010, and put me down the path of learning how to flip houses, wholesale houses. I kind of got into rentals a little bit here and there at that time, got back out, kept flipping, and finally got to a place, next thing I know, I was at 40 years old and paid my house off free and clear and started buying rental properties. That was because of an increased skill set, right? So we went from an income of $40,000 a year to making $40,000 paydays, sometimes several times per month. I did that because of an increased skill set. So then later, again, as I went into the wealth building phase and started trying to learn how to build wealth, I'm like, okay, learned how to make it. Now, how do I keep it? Because making it, keeping it, and making it grow are all completely different skill sets of their own, right? A lot of people figure out how to make money, fewer figure out how to keep it, and much fewer figure out how to make it grow. I wanted to figure out how to make it grow. So went down that path, again, explored all the different education opportunities and gurus and coaches and everything you all out there, and took everything I could from all of them, and then built my own system around it that I felt like was bulletproof. You can't shoot holes in it because it is both conservative and aggressive all at the same time. So I'm going to go through. I wish I can't show you these graphs, but in fact, I'll post it on my Instagram after this, just so you guys can see it, and you guys will be able to relate back to it. But the first level of this graph is, it's essentially 7 different levels. The bottom level is be obsessed with your financial education. And I say be obsessed because when you're obsessed, nothing will stop you. when you are just interested, oh, like I'm interested in becoming wealthy, you're not going to become wealthy. If you're just kind of interested in making more money, you're not going to make more money. You're going to do the same thing day in and day out. But when you're obsessed with it, you make changes. So being obsessed about your financial education, and this isn't being obsessed about money. This isn't being obsessed about having things. This isn't being obsessed about showing how much money you make. It's about being obsessed about the education, because that is ultimately what it comes down to. That education is what I teach my kids. That's the generational wealth that I'm concerned about. Yes, there's going to be assets and all that kind of stuff, but I can teach them the education, and then they're never worried about having dad's money or how much is he going to leave me or anything like that, because they have that same knowledge that I teach them, and they can carry it on to their kids. So first level, be obsessed about your financial education. Again, that's going to push you, when you're obsessed about, that's going to push you into learning and growth and all the pieces that are paramount to building your wealth. Next level is to know, manage, and reduce your expenses. Now, nobody likes to live on little, right? We all want a good lifestyle. Most people don't want to cut back, but we do need to cut back if there's debt in our life. Once you become debt free, like the freedom you experience is unreal. Most people, unfortunately, don't get to experience that. So what I have down here is install reduction plans next. But to know, manage, and reduce your expenses. If you don't know what your expenses are, like how can you know your finances? How can you know what's going on with your money if you don't have any idea what your expenses are? So what I would encourage you to do is just tally them up. Look at your mortgage, all your bills, your utilities, your basic needs, and figure out what they amount to. And then on top of that, you need to figure out what all your luxuries are, stuff that you could cut out if you wanted to or needed to. What I've experienced is everybody I've met has fluff in their expenses that they could cut out to start the investing process. It's hard, it's a commitment, but we have to start putting money aside and pay ourselves first if we're ever going to have a chance of becoming wealthy. So then the next tier is install a debt reduction plan. So what I recommend to people is try, if at all possible, to dedicate 10% of your net income to start paying down debt. All right, Dave Ramsey's great at this, teaches the debt snowball. I would highly recommend following that plan. If you are not following a debt reduction plan, that's, I think it's probably the best out there when it comes to debt. But getting, when we have debt, we have our mortgage and our car payments and our credit cards, all that stuff. That is all money that we're making that's paying somebody else rather than paying ourselves. So you imagine not having any of that debt in your life and any of those outgoing payments. And instead of paying all those creditors, instead you're paying yourself all of that money. Imagine how fast your money would grow. So that's why I believe in becoming debt free. So some people say, well, you shouldn't pay your house off because you can get, you can claim your interest, blah, blah, blah. Well, why don't you try investing $1,500 a month, $2,000 a month, and see how fast that grows? I can guarantee you're going to like that a whole lot more than that little bit of interest deduction that you get on your taxes. So yes, I'm a big believer in becoming debt-free, including the house. So install a debt reduction plan. Again, I would highly really try to get to 10% to start applying towards the debt. If you can't do that, do the best that you can, but it needs to be consistent. So it can't be 1 month you throw an extra $500 at it, the next month you throw an extra $100 at it. It needs to be a consistent percentage to start knocking that down. And then the next level is to automate your savings. Now, when we talk about savings, what we're talking about is, I call it my wealth account. Okay. I never save just to save. That's a very middle class mindset type of thing. We save to invest. Why do we not save just to save? Well, as we've experienced in the last 2 or 3 years, inflation is at what, a 5, 6, 7, 8% inflation rate, when the bank is going to pay us 0.5%, 1% if we're lucky, if we're in a decent money market account. So when we save money, we're literally losing minimum of 5% of our wealth per year. So it makes sense to save until you get to a point where you have enough in there to invest, whatever that is for you, right? I'm not going to tell you what to invest in. I'm going to tell you what I would recommend, but you put that money in that wealth account and then you invest it. And then next time it gets built up a little bit more, you turn around and invest it again. Next thing you know, over time, now you're still making money from your skill sets, but now your investments are starting to pay you every single month. And you just repeat this over and over and over again. And this is what paying yourself first looks like. Okay. When you paying yourself first is the foundation of what wealth is built on. If you pay everybody else first, you pay your mortgage, you pay your utilities, you pay for your gas, you pay for your groceries, all that stuff. Then you hope to save whatever's left. It's not going to happen. Our expenses will always eat it up. But if you make that dedication to paying yourself first, so when you get paid, a certain percentage goes into your wealth account, right? Then now that starts to build. So this, between the debt reduction plan, paying our debt down every time we get paid, or essentially every month, and automating our savings / wealth account, and that increases every month. Now, within a single month, we start getting wealthier. That gap starts to increase. So our debt goes down, our savings goes up. And over time, as that continues to spread, it gets bigger, our wealth creation just gets bigger and bigger and bigger. So those two things are the key. That's what it comes down to. Then the next step is increasing skill sets. Okay, so this is the rocket fuel, that essentially the gasoline that we get to pour on the entire thing. So I don't, no matter who's listening, you are not stuck at the income that you're currently at. You have the right to make as much money as you want. So, when you are dedicating a certain percentage of your income to your wealth account, let's just say, for example, I make $100,000 net and I dedicate 10% of it to my wealth account. So I'm going to have $10,000 a year going into it. Well, what if I raise my income up to $200,000? So just by increasing my income, I'm now doubling my wealth from one thing. Well, if I increase my income up to 500,000, now I've 5x'd the speed at which my wealth is growing. So the higher the income we achieve, and that's why the income and skill sets is a little bit higher up on the pyramid, is because we have to build that foundation first. If we don't have, our debt getting paid down, and we don't have the discipline to automate our savings / wealth account, then increasing our income isn't going to do anything good for us. We've all, heard the stories of celebrities and lottery winners that make fortunes, literally millions and millions of dollars, more money than we'll ever probably see in our lifetime, and they're still broke. It's because they don't have the foundation built. They've massively increased their income, but they've spent it all because they didn't have the rest of this built. So increasing the skill sets, and I should say, increasing our income will always be due to skill sets. We can't look at this from a place of, I just have to work more hours, because there's only so many hours in the day that we can work, right? And we certainly don't want to work them all. So by increasing our skill sets, and skill sets come down to the amount of value that we add to the marketplace, extremely important. So when we ask ourselves, how can I make more money? What we need to be saying is, how can I add more value to people? What can I create? What can I do? What can I build? What type of community can I create that can add more value to people's lives? That's how we increase our income, by serving more people. So some different income / skill sets that you can start to work on, stuff such as flipping houses, wholesaling houses, huge income generators, real estate agents on this call, getting better in that field, learning, mastering sales, mastering stuff such as public speaking, direct response marketing, copywriting, leadership. All of those are very high income producing skill sets. And as I talked about in that presentation, you can marry some of those skill sets together and create an amplifying effect. So for example, let's just say this is kind of what I do. So I teach people how to flip houses and how to do real estate. So if I go teach one person how to flip houses, maybe I'm going to charge them, anywhere from a few $100 to a few thousand, right? So that's the most I can make. But if I add value to more people and I increase my skill sets through something such as public speaking, and I can get in front of an audience of 1,000 people and sell a package, a coaching course for, a real estate course for a couple $1,000s. Next thing you know, I go from making a few $100s to a few thousand to potentially making a few $100,000, simply because I increased that skill set of presentation, of public speaking, that kind of stuff. So as you increase these skill sets together, you get an amplifying effect, and you can very seriously go from an income of $50,000, $100,000. Next thing you know, you can start doubling it and doubling it again and doubling it again. Within 5 to 10 years, probably every person on this call could be making a very high 6-figure income if they took their skill sets seriously and really put the time into them. So next on the pyramid would be pick your investment vehicle and invest. Okay, so this is what, the wealth account / the savings account, that's what this is for. So we put that money into that wealth account, and when it's ready, we invest it into something. Well, what do we invest it into? Well, that's for you to decide. And I say that because that's part of what being obsessed about your financial education is all about, of learning and growing and figuring out what investment vehicle is right for you. Personally, I love real estate, and I love it for multiple reasons. So first of all, we get the appreciation with real estate, and most investment vehicles are going to have some type of growth factored into them. Otherwise, why would we do them, right? So we get the appreciation with real estate, and I've seen the appreciation in some of my rental properties where, they've appreciated by 100 grand within 3 to 5 years. Will they always do that? Of course not, but it happens. And so while that property is appreciating, I have tenants inside paying that principal down. So that equity continues to increase simply because the market is pushing up the appreciation, right? I don't do anything about the appreciation. The market works to my advantage on my behalf. Why? We get back to inflation. So inflation is going to push up the value of real estate because real estate's a hard asset. So inflation is not necessarily going to push up the value of something like stocks, but it will push up the value of real estate because real estate's a hard asset. So just like the price of eggs and toilet paper and all that kind of stuff that we've seen go up in value or price, so does real estate. So I want to invest in something that the market is going to continue pushing up on my behalf, or without me doing anything. And I want something that I can also control, right? So with something like stocks, I can't control the stocks. I can't control what the CEOs, I can't control what they do to the company. I can't control what decisions they make. I can't control anything about how stocks, I can determine which ones I want to pick. Other than that, I can't control anything in the company. Whereas a piece of property, I can control it. It's a tangible asset that I can go touch. I can improve the landscaping. I can paint it. I can do all that stuff to increase the value and make it more appealing. So I like it for that reason. I also like it for the fact that we get depreciation on rental real estate. So the government knows that the government is not a good owner of property, and it can't rent out property to everybody. So the government gives us as investors essentially tax credits to rent housing to people. So my properties, let's say the average house, I get, probably an average of let's just call it $5,000 in tax credits per property every year in the form of depreciation. So it essentially erases my income tax. Okay. So picture this. So I have a rental property that I earn, oh, let's just call it $3,000, $4,000, $5,000 a month on, or a year. And then in the background, I have the depreciation working in my favor that almost erases the income on paper, right? I still get the income. Income goes in my pocket, but the depreciation erases the income on when it comes to filing taxes. So that's a way that my real estate, it's growing, it's paying me all that stuff, but I get huge tax credits and I pay less in taxes because the real estate gives me that benefit. And then what else? Oh, obviously the cash flow. So every single month, assuming I'm renting it for more than my mortgage and taxes, insurance, I get cash flow out of it every single month. So I think our average cash flow is somewhere around 250 to 260 a month. So that's not huge, but I don't live off of that real estate. I don't even touch it. 100%, I should say 100, 80% of my income from my rental properties goes back into my wealth account. So pay attention. So I'm putting money in there from my earnings, okay, from my skill sets, from flipping houses, selling courses, all that kind of stuff. So that percentage goes into my wealth account every month. And then the cash flow from the rental properties goes into that account every month. So then I take that and I turn around and I buy more real estate. So it's a compounding effect. And then next thing you know, a month or two later, I have money back in there again from more earnings and real estate paying me again. And I turn around and I buy more real estate. So as you can imagine, over the course of a decade of doing this, you're going to own a lot of real estate and you're going to have, it's going to add up. So that's picking the investment vehicle. I love real estate, but there's a lot of investment vehicles that might work for you. What I would say is, one, focus on something that has tax efficiency, meaning you get some tax credits and stuff for it. Most investment vehicles don't have that. And a 401k, stuff like that, no, that's not going to work in your favor long term. People's, in the Great Recession, we saw people's 401ks become a 201k. They literally lost their retirement accounts got cut in half overnight. So I look at like anything that has the potential or possibility for that to happen. I don't want my money in it. So I want my money in what I consider very conservative investments that have multiple factors working on my behalf. So real estate, I make money 5 ways by investing in a rental property. So that's how I look at it. So then the next and final step is taking the income that our assets or investments make and reinvesting it into additional assets and into additional investments. So when we do that, we look at it like this. We take our profits, right? Our profits from our income and our skill sets. That's essentially our seed. Okay. That's our seed. We don't want to spend all of our seed. We want to, plant some of it. And as we plant it, eventually, and we water it, we take care of it. Eventually those little seeds are going to grow into our money trees, our rental properties, other things we have going on. And then eventually those trees are going to bear fruit, and that fruit's going to fall. And what's that fruit have in it? It has more seeds. And those seeds fall into the ground. They get taken care of, they get groomed. Next thing you know, we have more trees that grow. So by continuing to reinvest our investment income, we have exponential growth. We can't stop it once it gets to a certain point. So once it hits the point of what we call critical mass, meaning our investments have the ability to pay for all of our lifestyle, everything we can think of, we can live our dream life off of it, then that's a point where it might make sense to cut back on our income and our skill sets and our work and start enjoying life a little bit more. And we can keep picking from those money trees, but because they're now producing so much, they keep growing in the background without us doing much. So they're going to keep growing and growing and growing. Our wealth is going to continue to grow even after it pays us to live our dream life. And that, my friends, that is the pyramid.
I love it. I love that you didn't have the pressure of that 20 minutes to like explain it this time. You could actually relax and run through it at your own leisure.
Oh yeah, we're about a half hour. I mean, I could, if there's questions in between, we could easily go an hour, but yeah, there's so much more. It's just like,
I have no idea what the tax write-offs, if there would be any on this one, but I used to work for a gun auction company, and believe it or not, there's like a lot of people that invest in firearms, and they put all of their skill sets into those types of investments. Because, there's money to be had in that, especially the antique ones, the Colt Walkers and things like that.
I think if a person, what I would say to a person, if they're going to be looking at anything such as like that, so like, guns, antiques, exotic cars, art, any of that type of stuff, it should be a very small percentage of their wealth, because that stuff, even though it might go up in value, it's not paying us any type of passive income. There's no tax benefits. So, it's something of like, okay, probably focus mostly on real estate, some index funds, stuff like that. And then maybe 2, 3, 5% you have in kind of like your play fund that you buy other stuff with.
And make sure you know how to not get ripped off.
Yeah.
Like, make sure you know your shit on that.
Yeah. That's probably more so, a hobby with some benefits factored in.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that was incredible. Kelsey, Mark, have you ever heard of the book House Fire?
I haven't.
Kelsey recommends the book House Fire. That's interesting. Kelsey, are you still here? Are you able to open your mic and talk about that?
Yeah, I'm here. I'm driving. Sorry. House Fire stands for House Financial Independence Retire Early. It was just super, super related with what he was just talking about. So I feel like if you're a book person or an audiobook person, that is like super related to all of this today.
Nice.
Cool. Yeah. Awesome. Thank you.
Yeah.
Mark, can you talk a little bit about the Mark Lane education that you have?
Yeah, absolutely. So we're just getting ready to release a couple things in about a month or two. We have a book out. We meaning myself and my company. I'm releasing a book. Probably be ready by sometime in July. But it's about how to generate leads when it comes to real estate investing. But anyway, and then we have a couple other courses that are going to be available very soon. There's already some people in it, but we kind of like open it up every few months. But really, I used to do some coaching and teaching years ago, and then I just got so busy with my real estate business that I put all that on hold for quite some time. And then once I kind of hit this point of what I'm talking about of, I had my house paid off and my investments built, and I built for myself what I essentially want to get people to. And I'm like, okay, like I've done it. I know how to do it. Now I need to start teaching other people how to do it. And I feel like I honestly think that's part of our responsibility or our duty as entrepreneurs and business owners, is not just to like constantly try to make more money, but to teach other people how to do it. Because, I had just posted this on my Facebook today, how, like I grew up in a very middle-class home, great childhood, great parents, all that. So nothing, I didn't grow up in a bad household, but my parents never once talked about investing or money or anything else. As most middle-class households, it was kind of taboo to talk about money. And it was just something like, we didn't have a circle of friends or my parents' friends that talked about money. So how could I have been expected to have my head on my shoulders right around the subject of money and finances and investing when nobody I knew talked about it or knew anything about it. So I look at this as it's my duty to teach people and to help people and to help them like change their views around money. Because unfortunately, most of us have some beliefs around the subject of money that doesn't serve us. And until we change those beliefs and those patterns and we start doing things differently, our outcome's not going to be any different. So that's what Mark Lane Education is all about. The website is a little bit under construction. I don't even know if you guys can go there right now, but you can, find me on my Instagram or Facebook at Mark Lane Education. I post more on my Facebook than I do Instagram, but I'll be there. Friend me, and you could feel free to send me a message. I do send out a newsletter every Sunday, as well as YouTube videos every Wednesday. So I send those out through my email list. So if you guys want to send me a message, give me your email. I'd be happy to add you to the list and start sending those to you as well. So that's really what Mark Lane Education is all about, is just building an education platform where we can serve people and help them both in real estate and their wealth building journey.
It really impacted me when when I heard you speak in Des Moines and you said, wealthy people aren't afraid to talk about money. They talk about money, and like poor people don't talk about money,
Yeah.
Also,
it's
the
crazy.
fact that you're on Facebook more means that you're old.
Yeah. Well, probably older
Young
than you,
people
so.
are on Instagram. Old people are on Facebook.
Hey, it is what it is. I'm not gonna lie. I'm 45. I just turned 45. So.
Well, I'm 40, so I'm a
Well, you'll
beautiful
probably be on
40-year-old,
Facebook pretty
young
soon.
40-year-old. So,
And next thing you know, you're gonna be on Facebook. That's just the
you
just the
shut your
life
mouth.
cycle of social media.
Mark will not be coming back on the show, everybody. He's not welcome back.
Yeah. So I, with most of my friends, my good friends, we talk about money and finances and where we're at in our journeys and our businesses. We talk about all this stuff, and we talk about it very openly. But I can't turn around and have those same conversations with my family. It's crazy. So, and most people are unfortunately in that same situation. And I think that we need to be okay. It's like anything else, any other topic. If we're not going to be okay talking about it and open our mind to other ideas and possibilities, how can we ever expect it to change? So
is that
money is
true
just one of those
even
things
after you found success in what you've been doing, that they don't want, that the subject is still taboo in your family?
Yeah, it's not as much taboo. It's just that it's something that nobody else seems to care about. So here's something that's crazy is, it's not that I would expect anybody to come to me asking for advice, but I'm the only millionaire in all of my family, extended family, everybody. Like, what that ends up probably being hundreds of people. Not a single person has ever came to me asking for advice. So they'll go to other relatives, they'll go to their friends, they'll go to their financial advisors that are not millionaires, but not a single one has ever said, Mark, can you show me how to do this? I'm like, I want to help you, but you have to be willing to take the first step. And they're not. But that's just because, back to the bottom of this pyramid, they're not obsessed about their financial education. They don't really care, and I can't make them care. So, most people would much rather have somebody else broker their money for them. They would rather ask somebody else, hey, where should I invest? They want the answer, but they don't want to go through the work of actually, they don't want to do the work. They don't want to go through the experiences and some of the trials and errors and heartache and all that kind of stuff that comes with it. They just want, hey, put your money here and it's going to grow by 7%. No, it usually doesn't work out.
I agree. Who else? Anybody else have questions or input? Otherwise, I can wrap it up. All right, guys. Well, thank you so much. Thank you for your time, Mark. I really appreciated this. This was awesome.
Thank you, Mark.
Yeah.
Welcome. Thanks for having me.
And thank you guys for tuning into this week's WTF Wednesday. Next week is going to be on Sky Slope. The following week is going to be on KV Core, just a heads up. And